Time to go canoeing. So we're off on a Crownland canoe camping trip, going out just for a few days. This is an area that we scoped out and discovered using the Crownland Policy Atlas and Google satellite imagery. We found that online, and then we came one day on a day trip to see if there was a place to park nearby, what the portages were like, and everything was suitable, so we decided we would come back for a camping trip. So we've arrived, we've parked, we're at the put-in now of a small lake on Crownland. The canoe is here. We have our PFD. The large blue bag that you see there is our dry bag. That holds everything that must stay dry, things like clothes, extra footwear, sleeping bags, our tent, our sleeping pads, that sort of thing. Then there's that gray food bag there with my throw line. Then is another pack, another backpacking pack. That contains everything that can afford to get wet in a rain or if we took a dump. So that's things like pots and pans and virtually everything else.
This is Lake 1 of 3 small lakes that we'll be paddling today. The camp.
Feels great to be on the water. So we're just coming to the narrows in between the end of the first lake and the start of the second, and I'm just sort of poling my way through some pickerel weed and water shields and water lilies. And when we came here to scope this out about a week and a half ago, the water level was a little lower, so it was actually a little harder to pull through here, and there was a number of blown down trees that were blocking the way, so we broke it up with a saw and cut those so that the next time we would come it would be easier. Which it is. It just doesn't look like it is.
Actually, there's the cut log right now.
2 of them. So we've just crossed the deepest part of this pretty shallow lake. We're on the far shore and we're looking for where the portage is, but there's a mud flat between us and the grassy area. So I don't think we're going to have the luck that I was hoping for. I think we're due for a long canoe drag through this grassiness ahead. So it looks like we've landed on the far shore, but we haven't landed on the far shore. This is an open muskeg. There's a lot of sphagnum moss here, and what looks like land where you could step out is in fact a giant floating sponge mat. You cannot set foot on that. You'll probably break through. like my paddle just did. Whoop. You can see how deep that is. You could fall through and drown under there. So there's no getting out here. So we have to do this the hard way. We have to paddle our way out of here, go back a little ways, and get out closer to the forest edge, and then walk all along this grassy area as close to the shore as possible. We're still going to get soaked. There's going to be plenty of water in there, but at least it won't be dangerous like it would be to walk on this. We landed. This is where we landed, a long way from where we would have wanted to, but exactly where we were last time. So what we're going to have to do is pack out the gear and drag the boat through this grass. You can actually see a trail in the grass here where we came last time. And we're going to have to haul the boat and our gear all the way through this grassy area, around the bend over there. And the portage is at the far end over there, as we discovered last time. Now, because this is a nice grassy area, I can actually drag this boat rather than have to portage it. And given that at any point I could break through into some water and possibly break a leg, I'd rather drag the boat. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on the 2 packs. We're going to leave the paddles, the PFDs, and the food bag in there. So we will carry the packs, but we will drag everything else in the canoe because what will remain in the canoe will not be too heavy.
And just as we approach the 3rd lake, a bit of sunshine is starting to peek through. Should be a beautiful few days. This rain has been going on for about 25 minutes now. It's just hammering us. There's thunder and lightning too. Martin's put the canoe up so that we can take a rest under it and not get too wet. So this is the start of the 3rd lake in our little system. And that rocky outcropping up ahead is where we'll be resting our heads tonight.
So the steak dinner is on, and along with our delicious steak, cooked over an open campfire, we have the privilege of enjoying some homemade dandelion wine sent to us by our friend Francis in Quebec. Thank you, Francis.
Thanks, Francis.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's the next day, and we've made camp and spent the night, had our supper, had a good night's sleep, woke this morning, had breakfast, and are getting ready for a hike. Before we head out on the hike, though, I thought I would show you a little bit of what we made with the camp, because when we arrived, the camp looked very different. So let me show you what we've done, how we've set up our camp. First of all, we arrived here. This was our takeout, and this will be our put-in when we leave here again. We quickly sorted out where was the best place to land the canoe and take off from the canoe, where would be the best place to go in for a swim safely without hurting yourself in the rocks and things like that. The best place to draw water and filtering water and that sort of thing. The fire pit is right over here. The fire pit was a very old, probably hadn't been used in years, possibly decades, but we reassembled it from the existing rocks, a little bit better suited to our purposes. Normally I would make a smaller fire ring. I don't like a fire ring that's quite this elaborate, but the rocks were here, so we decided to go with it. I also made myself a little log bench out of some rotting cedars and pines. Over here is the canoe. You always have to tie down your canoe at night and during the day. You never know when a gust of wind is going to pick up your boat and toss it. It could toss it into the water, in which case you could lose your boat. Or it could just toss it into the woods and toss it onto a sharp rock or something like that, especially if your boat is light, and this is a light boat. The way I like to lash my canoe is I like to turn it right upside down, start with a lashing at the thwart, pass it over the bottom of the canoe, around the tree, and back over again and tie it again. And I do that at both ends. If I expect there's going to be a strong wind, I'll use the rope that's in the canoe, that's part of the bailing kit, and the throw line, and lash it again yet more securely. The reason I pass the rope from this side over towards the tree and not directly from here to the tree is I don't want a wind to blow on this, roll the canoe, and then the wind catches on the inside hull of the canoe and acts like a sail, and that can break most lines if the wind is strong enough. So this is how I like to secure my canoe. The paddles are stashed upright, and that's so that we don't accidentally step on them, thinking that it's just a piece of old firewood. Heading up to the main body of the camp. There's our tent. We used the existing tent pad that was there. It was actually fairly clean. There wasn't much ground litter to clean up, to have a nice, comfortable sleep. The shelter area, though, was a little bit more cluttered up and needed some work. Strictly speaking, we didn't need our bug shelter. It's very unbuggy right now, so this is actually overkill, but we would have had to have strung up a tarp no matter what in case of rain. So we had to clear this up a little bit because there weren't a lot of level, flat areas. Like there's an area here, but there's a big pit here, as you can see. There's a big hole here. Don't want to set up a tarp in it here because if it rains, the water will pool and puddle into it. That was higher ground and it was flat, but it had a couple of small trees, very young conifers, only a couple of years old, that were in the way, so I cut those off. And I made use of those poles for some other projects. In the shelter, we tried to damage the vegetation as little as possible, cutting out only what we had to. We left a number of small trees here. They're kind of like potted plants. And this is where we stow most of our gear during the day. We set it up kind of like a little fireplace. We haven't actually used it. This is in case that we needed to use our Trangia alcohol stove in the event of a storm or bad weather, and we didn't want to be out exposed down there. We could comfortably cook in here. And when we're not cooking on it, it's a good surface to, keep your plates and cutlery and cups and stuff like that. Because we're leaving camp now, and we're done cooking and done brushing our teeth, everything that has an odor to it has been stowed in our dry bag and hung from a tree about 100 or 200 yards, or feet rather, from camp. So it's hanging on a high limb, inaccessible to critters. Our latrine, which I showed how to make in a previous video, is over there. It's over a little hill, away from water, away from streams, and out of sight, so there's lots of privacy. This is our dish rack. We've washed all our dishes, everything clean, got as much scent off of it as possible, and it's just hanging in a mesh bag to air dry. So we're off now. We're going on an exploratory hike. So when we explore Crown Land, it's usually in 4 phases. We're on phase 4 now. Phase 1 is you go online, you consult maps, online maps or paper maps, the Ontario Policy Atlas, Google satellite imagery, to identify a place that might be a suitable candidate for camping and that sort of thing, which we did. Stage 2 is actually physically going out and seeing if there's a place to park nearby, if there's a portage route, if there's a trail, and in the hopes of finding a place to camp, either by backpacking in or canoeing in, as we did. So that we did a couple of weeks ago. And then yesterday was stage 3, was actually coming to the place that we think is a suitable campsite, establishing camp, and using that as a base camp to do what we're about to do now, stage 4, which is we go out and we explore on foot or by canoe. So we're looking for portages, we're looking for established hiking trails or game trails, old logging roads, which we know there are in this area, with a view to seeing what there is to see, finding other places to camp, finding a portage trail, hopefully into another lake that we know is nearby. So that's what we're about to do now. Everything is stowed and put away that needs to be put away. We have our emergency ditch kits with us, and we're off. We just started our hike. We are only about 100 feet away from our site, and heading in the direction of where we know there's supposed to be a logging road, based on some maps. And we're hoping that we will find some kind of trail that will take us to that logging road. Perhaps another logging road, perhaps an ATV trail, perhaps a hunting trail or a game trail. And we found this. If you look down here, you've got a huge mucky mess here and a huge mucky mess here, and then a ridge in the middle. This is not a natural formation. This is where a logging truck used to come over and over again and has mudded out completely. It takes ages for this to get completely overgrown, but as you see, the vegetation is springing back. And if you look off in that direction, you'll see you've got parallel lines of trees. You've got parallel lines of trees here, and it's clear with short vegetation in between. It's not a natural formation. This is a logging road, somewhat overgrown, and we're hoping that this will take us to perhaps more well-utilized logging road. So this is what an old logging road can look like decades after logging has stopped. I thought I would show you some remnants of logging efforts. You've got this giant log right here. You've got a stump right in the middle of the trail. You can imagine the size of the trucks that would pass right over that. They cleared that, this old stump. But this gives you an idea of the age of this and how long ago it was logged. And if you want to see the kind of thing that they were after, this magnificent cedar here, it's absolutely huge. And there's a really interesting tell on this particular tree. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully you can see this. That is a blaze that would have been carved into this tree when it was much younger. There's a lot of woundwood that's formed over it, but this tree might have been destined to be cut and it got missed. We're still walking down that old logging trail. Here's a stump. You can tell by how straight the cut is, that this is not a natural break, that this was cut. What's interesting about this is that this is a nurse stump, or sometimes you'll see them lying down and trees growing out of them. That would be a nurse log. But this is a nurse stump. There's a little golden birch here and a little conifer growing out of that. Seeds landed here and they're growing out of the rotting material of this stump. The logging road that we were on just petered out. It was not going entirely in the direction that we were hoping to go in. It started paralleling the lake that we were on and paralleling the logging road we're hoping to find. And so when it petered out, we decided, well, we're just going to move perpendicular to it. We're just going to cut across over a series of hills through this nice coniferous forest and hopefully we'll find the logging road that we're looking for on the other side. We did it. Crossing over that deciduous hill took us to another small logging trail, which we've been following, and that is taking us into the main logging trail, or logging road. And as you can see, this is like a country road. This is going to be easy walking. This huge logging road is really quite lovely to walk on after crashing through the woods. It's broad and open and airy. It's not buggy, so we're able to take our hats off and unbutton our shirts, roll up our sleeves, and enjoy a leisurely, easy walk for a change, which is quite different for most of our Crown Land hikes. You'll notice that my wife is carrying a fanny pack. She has a liter of water in there, along with everything else that she'll need for a night in the woods in the event that something happened, if we turned an ankle and couldn't make it back to camp, or if we got lost or separated or something like that. I have one as well. We call these our ditch kits. If we ever had to ditch our camp or ditch our canoe, or we rolled our canoe and lost our canoe and all our gear, the ditch kits, which are on our person at all times, have everything we need. So we never go on these hikes without our ditch kits. We don't carry backpacks because there isn't anything that we would put in a backpack that we absolutely need at this time of year. Things like tarps and shelters, lines, knives, first aid kits, water filters, combustion devices, everything that we need is in our ditch kits.
And there's Martin, and he carries a ditch kit also, and the bear spray.
So according to our GPS, the trail we were on was running parallel to a creek that feeds into a large lake. We're interested in visiting that creek. So when the logging trail got closest to the creek, we just decided to break off the trail and head straight for the creek and just do a little bushwhack here to see what we can see. Success. Crashing through the woods has taken us right to this little stream that passes through a broad floodplain. There's a beaver dam up ahead. That's what's making that noise. Just a beautiful area. And because there's a way onto that logging road from some more accessible highway, as there has to be, that means that we can come by car along that, find a place to park, and portage our canoe a short distance anywhere along this creek if we ever find a suitable campsite. That point way off in the distance there where that tree is, the center of the image, that looks promising. We might come back another time. This fourth step in Crown Land exploration, making a base camp and striking out in different directions, is something that you can iterate and reiterate many times from the same base camp. There are so many spur trails breaking off the logging trails that we were on, so many different places to explore, that we can't do it all in one day or even a couple of days. So we will definitely be back and exploring more of these areas. So this is the Nalgene bottle that we keep in my wife's ditch kit. We finished the water that's in here, but we're at a water source now, so we're going to refill that. So I was just guzzling down what was left. As a water filter, as our principal water filter on camping trips, we now use something called the Be Free. This is the 1 liter bag. It's got a collapsible bag and a kind of weird papery filter. It works really easily and it's terrific, and the water comes out tasting really good. So you just refill it in the simplest possible way. And then screw the filter back on. And then there's a cap on it, like a smart water bottle. I'll use this hand. And then, when you want to drink, you can just gravity pour, or you can squeeze. But we're going to use it to refill our bottle. And once that's filled, I can fill this again and drink from this first before putting it away, and then we'll keep that one in reserve. So, we've got 1 liter of fresh water. We've got some water left in here. I should mention how you rinse the filter here. So the filter hangs down into this squeezable bottle, and you just shake it. And that dislodges all of the particulate matter that's clogging up the filter. And it falls down into the bag. Then you take this off and dump it out. Alternatively, since you're just dislodging it, it doesn't need to be cleaned with clean water. You can do this. Just make sure that if you are going to rinse the filter that way, that you keep this cap on here, smart cap on. You don't want to contaminate that. That's where you're going to be drinking from. And then when you're done with it, I just squish it up, get as much air out of it as possible. And then it goes right back into my cargo pant pocket, along with a bunch of other stuff I have in there. It's pretty sweet. Moves just like a hen in a farmyard.
Yeah, oh, he's beautiful. Aww. He's making noise.
Yeah, a little clucking sound.
We'll call you Dinner. He's so beautiful.
He's got the ruff. Yeah, he's a ruffed grouse.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. All right.
What a beautiful set of rapids. We did not expect to find this at all. What a sight. Really beautiful. And the woods up here are really campable. A lot of nice high, dry ground up there. Of course, you don't want to camp right next to rapids like that. The sound of rapids over the course of a day and night will just drive you nuts. But it sure is beautiful. Well, this is a huge surprise. We did not expect any of these falls or rapids along this. That didn't appear on any of the maps that we looked at. And that's one of the pleasures of Crownland camping, is that kind of little discovery. There are suitable places to camp here, although, as I said before, I don't like to camp right next to falls. That white noise gets to you after a while, but it sure is beautiful. Oh my goodness. And we're supposed to be on our way back now, but we had a serious case of what's around the next bend. But I'm glad we looked around what was around the bend. What a spectacular spot. A nice calm pool. Perfect place for a swim. So finding those falls and those rapids and being able to take that refreshing skinny dip was surely the highlight of that day. But what never ceases to amaze me is that every time we go Crownland camping or on a Crownland day trip and hike, something like that happens. We find little gems in secret places like that. And ever since we made our two-part video on how to locate Crownland in Ontario, people have been writing to me, sending me emails and Facebook posts and leaving comments telling me that they really appreciate that they were able to find some piece of Crown land within driving distance of where they live. And that's been enormously gratifying to me and to my wife, that we've been able to help people find exactly that kind of thing, their own secret camping locations and favorite hiking routes. But we made this video to show people, well, just to give people a sense of the excitement and the spontaneity and adventure of going off the beaten path into Crown land, because you don't know what you're going to discover. If you go out there, you will make such discoveries yourself. But a lot of people are intimidated by the process. They're a little worried that they're going to have to pack up their backpacks and their canoes and, you know, load up the car and go out there, and they won't find a place to park, and they won't know where to begin, where to go, and there might not be a suitable camping place. And they're overwhelmed by that big picture, but it's not like that. And so we wanted to show you our process, how we break it down into those 4 stages. So the point of this video was to give you a sense of what it's like out here when we do this and what the process is. So we're going to recap what those 4 steps are. So the first stage is research, consulting maps and online resources. Now, if you don't know how to do that, if you've never done that before and you don't know where to begin, go watch my 2-part video series on how to locate Crown land. Please watch both parts. The videos go into excruciating detail on how to use the online Crown land policy atlas and how to use Google Earth to obtain accurate satellite images of the area that you're going to explore. And with those tools, you should be able to find some Crown land within a reasonable distance of where you live in Ontario. Stage 2 is reconnaissance. That's the day trip where you physically go out, perhaps with a couple of locations in mind, not just one, in case one of them doesn't pan out. And you physically go out with your car, with some friends, and you start hiking in. You're just going to bring a day pack with you, and you're just looking for a suitable place to camp, maybe a suitable place to put your canoe in the water and start exploring from there. That's all you're doing on that occasion. All right? If you're lucky, you will find a suitable place to camp or a suitable place for launching off onto longer backpacking trips. If you're unlucky, the worst that'll happen is you'll spend a great day in the woods off the beaten path. Stage 3 is making a base camp. If in stage 2 you have found a suitable place to camp, you've set up your base camp, that's stage 3, and you just camp. You just have a vacation out in the woods. And you can use that as a launching point for stage 4, which is a process that you can iterate and reiterate, where you go off from your base camp and you go off and explore what's around your base camp, either by canoe or on foot. You might find trails, you might not find trails, it might just all be a bushwhack, but either way, it will be interesting, and you will have that sense of exploring and discovery and making that place your own. And I promise you, if you do this, you will eventually find some just wonderful little gems. And because that stage 4 can be iterated and reiterated, you can, if you're lucky, find a series of places that you can make more campsites and another campsite, and you can create your own Crown land canoe routes and backpacking routes. So we hope you will give it a try, and if you do, please be safe. Tell someone where you're going and when you're going to be back, and be responsible while you're out there. Be careful, be environmentally responsible, and strive for the leave no trace ethic wherever possible. Okay? Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed watching.